I couldn't really find the right hair. I was having trouble seeing through that. All right, we're going to have a great man on here, a raconteur, a tennis player, a raconteur, get it? A drummer, one of the leaders of Metallica. Let's find him. I'm sure he knows how to do this because he's not he's very tech savvy. Lars, we're going to bring... I don't know if that was so successful, but it was definitely my attempt at something.
Hey, you know what?
I don't know if that worked out,
That was super cool. Come on. I don't think I've seen hair like that. Nobody in Metallica other than Kirk Hammett's had hair like that for decades.
Well, I don't either.
Okay. Well, listen, I wear these hats for a reason, trust me.
Yeah.
So you don't want to see what's under this cap.
Hey, we were listening to For Whom the Bell Tolls off this new record, right?
That's right. No, that's kind of what it sounded like there. I was banging along, but I think it was For Whom the Bell Tolls, yes. I was in the moment. It's a good way to wake up.
I have this on a lot of different formats. I have it on DVD. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I have it. This is when I drive around in my truck. I have this on CD. You know those things, right?
Now I'll be really impressed if you pull up the cassette.
That would be cool.
Yeah, come on.
I've got the closest. So I've got it on record. Look at it.
Come on, that's right.
But hey, the closest I can do, Lars. I'm gonna. They fell. Look, this isn't bad, right? That's not a bad. That's Bark at the Moon, right?
Come on, right there. That was the first arena tour we were on in the U.S.
Yeah.
Ozzy's Bark at the Moon in 1842.
I saw that. I was a young man then. I was 14, 15, I don't know. I saw that tour in the Worcester Centrum in 1986.
That's right. That was a good time. That was the first time that the greater American arena rock audiences were exposed to the racket that we did at the time. That was great, and Ozzy and Sharon were fantastic. They had us out for about 6 months. It was the first time in the A-Leagues. It was great. We used to every time we got a sound check, we used to play a Black Sabbath song to see if we could get Ozzy to come up and sing with us. That was our big dream.
Did he do that?
He didn't, unfortunately.
Did Ronnie James Dio ever come up?
Ronnie James Dio was not on that tour. He was, I think he was in Rainbow at the time, maybe, or was maybe doing his own solo thing at the time. There was no Ronnie Dio sightings at the time. At the time, the vibe between Ozzy and Dio was not very good because Dio took his place in Sabbath, obviously. So there was a bit of bad blood between the two. So I don't think he was allowed into the arenas.
Did you say bat blood? Oh, my boy who's 10 said,
whoa.
My boy
this is what we're going to be doing for the next half hour.
That's pretty good. This is what they teach. I'm at the Washington Post, where I'm the national arts reporter, Geoff Edgers, and this is a thing we've been doing since the pandemic because I'm stuck in this barn. And so Lars Ulrich, the drummer, and I'm not going to call you the leader, but one of the leaders of Metallica,
I like, you know what, I got to tell you, in your introduction when you said raconteur, that's not something I get called often, and I actually really like that word. I think that's a great word, and it happens that Jack White, who's one of my favorite artists of all time, he's obviously in the band called the Raconteurs, one of his many projects, so I'll stick with raconteur, thank you. Well,
you've always, it's not a coincidence that you're here with me, because you've always been sort of the voice of Metallica. You collect art. You're an athlete. So I guess Renaissance man, you're not just a guy who bangs the skins. You know what I mean? Not that that's bad.
I guess I'm not. No, it's hard for me to. I guess I've never been quite comfortable with all those definitions and sort of trying to define who I am. But yes, I grew up in Copenhagen, Denmark, in a very sort of art-filled and music-filled environment, and it's always been part of my journey. And so, art, music, film, literature, poetry, anything that has a creative a creative energy flowing through it turns me on, and I'm interested in all things like you said, art and creativity. So it's Raconteur is a good one.
By the way, when I was a kid, I went to Copenhagen, and the two things I remember is Legoland.
That's right.
And also, there was like a museum of people who were dead and like frozen in the ground. Like you could see them. Does that ring a bell at all?
Well, Legoland obviously rings a bell. The first Lego's Danish, obviously, and Legoland is a couple hours outside of Copenhagen, and is a big part of Danish kids' upbringing. The museum with frozen dead people.
I may have made
that one. I can't remember. There was a museum that we used to go to when we were in school. Every year we'd have a school trip, Frilandsmuseet, which translates to, I guess, the free air museum, where you would sort of like learn about Denmark in the 17th century and, farming and, whatever happened, when the plague showed up. That maybe a place where there were frozen dead people. That's the best I can give you.
Hey, Lars, we have so much to get to, and we only have about 52 minutes because on Instagram, if you go over an hour, we cannot preserve it. So I want to ask you first. We'll just talk about this new record, which is S&M2, which is coming 21 years after you recorded the original S&M with the San Francisco Symphony. And I want to understand something. I have seen multiple concerts with orchestras, and sometimes they're amazing, and sometimes they don't work.
Where does this one fall?
Come off like a little like string sections over like the Chips soundtrack. It's hard to do drums. It's hard to do electric guitar. I am pleasantly impressed by the sound of this double album. And I want to understand from you, it's not easy. People maybe don't understand. How do you meld Metallica's sound with the San Francisco Symphony properly?
Well, obviously, there's a couple different answers to that. But as far as the sound is concerned, Greg Fiddleman, who's been producing and engineering our records for the last 12, 13 years, he's got a lot to answer for. He has done an incredible job, and the early reports that are getting back to me is that people are very pleasantly, not surprised, but they love the sound of the record, just like you said. So obviously, when we did this endeavor 20 years ago, you learn that, like you say, melding an orchestra and a rock and roll band is not the easiest thing. So Bob Rock, who did the first project, he was very kind, actually, to talk to Greg and I and to give us some pointers about what the takeaways from the first go-around were. Obviously, technology has come quite a way since then, but the key thing is really trying to isolate the orchestra. 20 years ago on the first album, the orchestra and Metallica were there was no way you could sort of separate them, and it was quite a cluster beep, and at the time, and this time Greg really separated the orchestra, separated Metallica, and he got way out in front of it, and so it was less of a crazy undertaking, but obviously also a lot of it goes to the written parts for the orchestra, to the notes and to everything that they're playing that the arrangers have to write. So obviously there has to be breathing room, and there has to be places where the orchestra can kind of shine and do their thing. And so Michael Kamen, who wrote all the orchestral arrangements 20 years ago, and then Bruce Coughlin, who wrote all the 10 or so new songs that we brought into the project this time around, they have a lot to answer for on that front.
There's a song. Tell people there's a song on here. There are some songs you do that you did on the first one, and you know, Enter Sandman. You have to do that every time you play forever, no matter where it is. But there's a lovely tribute to Cliff Burton on here, your original bassist. Tell us about that, and I guess there was an orchestra member who specifically was highlighted on that.
Yeah. So Unfortunately, Michael Kamen, who really was steering the ship on every front for the first project, he passed on, I think, in 03, 04. So we needed to bring in a new collaborator, and the director of the San Francisco Symphony for the last 25 years, Michael Tilson Thomas, was happy to step into that position, and we were happy to have him. He, as we were trying to figure out what we could do with this project to make it different than the first go around, which was really important to all of us, because we didn't want to just repeat what we did 20 years ago. We wanted to take it someplace different. He suggested that we highlight some of the members of the orchestra. A significant difference between this outing and 20 years ago is that last time, the members of Metallica were all in their mid-30s, and we were pretty much the youngest people on stage. All the orchestra members were pretty much older than we were. Now, 20 years later, the members of Metallica in their mid-50s. There are lots of the members of the orchestra who are in the 30s and 40s, who skew younger than we do. And a lot of those guys now have been reared on rock and even on Metallica. So the differences between the two worlds were, 20 years ago it was a really, really wide gap. It's much narrower in 2019. And so MCT suggested that we highlight some of the Metallica fans in the orchestra. And one of them was Scott, who's the lead bass player, Scott Pingle, who's the lead bass player, and who was a big Metallica fan, and obviously was, we didn't know at the time, but was very influenced by Cliff Burton. So about a week before the big weekend, we were doing rehearsals at HQ, and he showed up, and there were lots of different people and lots of different ideas for us to try to take this to some different place. And he showed up. We had been told that he was a big Cliff Burton fan, and we had been told that he was going to do some sort of tribute to Cliff, his version of Anesthesia, which is a very I think for the Metallica fans and for us, it's a very sacred piece, obviously, because of Cliff's story and so on. And that's not something that you want to undertake unless you can pull it off. And we were skeptical, I'll have to admit. And he walked into the space at HQ. I'd met him a couple of times before. Super sweet guy, very, very easy, very sort of easy energy. And he started playing, and it was definitely one of those holy beat moments where you're kind of freezing and going, is this really happening? And he channeled the spirit of Cliff Burton in the most beautiful way, while he added his own kind of color and dynamic to it. And it was this great meeting of what I thought was the rock and roll world and the classical world came out in those 4 or 5 minutes as he did his tribute. And at both of the shows at the Chase Center, when the fans experienced this, I mean, there was not an eye dry in the house, and people, it was absolutely one of the highlights of the weekend.
Because Lars, this is not a song you played much or hardly at all.
No, it's never been played since Cliff's passing, other than one time in Detroit when we were doing our own festival 6-8 years ago, and we played the album that it was on, Kill 'Em All, in its entirety. So Robert Trujillo, our bass player, obviously was brave enough also to step into those shoes and to attempt to play it. Obviously pulled it off and added again his own energy and vibe to it. But this is a very, very underperformed piece in the Metallica history. Like I said, to my knowledge, it's only been performed, I guess, 3 times now. Once by Rob and twice by Scott.
I mean, the thing, I'll tell you, when I saw you in 1986 opening for Ozzy, I was a little, I'm not going to lie to you, I was a little scared.
It should be.
Like, it's like Power Station was around, and like, it's like Duran Duran, and then you guys came, and I was like, who are these guys? They're terrifying. But you actually...
Where did you see us? Where was it?
The Worcester Centrum.
The Worcester, out in Worcester. Okay, yeah.
I don't really
That was great
understand why
outside
I
of
got
Boston there, yeah.
My parents said, when I was 13, 14, 15, they would just drop me off in front. I'd go in there, I'd see AC/DC or Aerosmith or Ozzy, and they just stood outside, I guess, or sat in the car. But I don't think I would do that. You know, it's like,
And listen, whatever it's worth to you, my mom did the same. When I started going to concerts in Copenhagen, Denmark, where I grew up in 1973, she would just drop me outside. I saw Deep Purple, Sweet, Slade, Status Quo, Thin Lizzy, and the list goes on. But it was kind of the same thing. I think, obviously, in all seriousness, the 70s had a lot to do with it in both countries.
yeah. Damn, Thin Lizzy. Come on, that's awesome, right?
Come on. No, Thin Lizzy, so much of rock in Denmark in the mid to late 70s was directly influenced by what was big in England. And so the biggest bands that would come and play usually once a year were Sweet and Slade, Thin Lizzy, like I said, Status Quo, Deep Purple, Rainbow. So it was a good time. I saw all the bands when they came through.
So when I saw you there, I was, as I said, I was a little terrified, but intrigued. But it's interesting when I read about you now and I read interviews, you guys were not only metalheads. You had some jazz going on for you, and Cliff was classical, right? I mean, you guys had other things that you were into that were completely outside of that genre.
Yeah, it started. I mean, for me, it started when the earliest I can remember. Opposite of where my bedroom was at our house in Copenhagen, my dad had his music room, and he would just be in there listening to records. It was where he listened to music, obviously, but also wrote. He was a writer for a couple Danish papers. He was primarily a tennis player, but his hobby, I guess, for lack of a better word, or his escape from tennis was writing. So he would review jazz music and was the jazz critic for a couple of the main Danish newspapers. So there was a lot, and in Copenhagen in the 1960s was a very healthy and vibrant jazz milieu, and it was just, so many of the Americans jazz greats came over, not only played in Copenhagen and Stockholm and in Paris and so on, but actually ended up staying there because they were welcomed and embraced in a way that they weren't in America in the 60s. So people like Dexter Gordon would come and go out of the house. Other people that were in Denmark were like Ben Webster. People like Sonny Rollins spent a lot of time in Copenhagen. So there was all this music coming out of his room all the time, from Miles to Coltrane to like the guys I just mentioned to the
Hey Lars, wasn't Dexter Gordon your godfather?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Oh my God! Hey, wait! Can we get a little deep into Torben here? Is that how you pronounce your dad's name?
Torben, yes.
Yeah. So I was, I just have to ask you about this. I found this picture. Right. Look at the man. Right.
There you go.
Dear God, that's your father. And then I'm doing a little research about his tennis playing. And I know you were a big tennis player, but the man went to the 4th round of Wimbledon twice, right? You know this.
I don't know exactly. I mean, he played all 4 of the Grand Slams and was, a touring professional with the WCT tour. He played at the same time as sort of, 60s and early 70s as people like Rod Laver and John Newcombe and Ken Rosewall and those guys. And he had a very different approach to tennis than a lot of those other dudes. He was not so much interested in winning or losing, but he was really interested in just playing and more the philosophical elements of the game, and he was kind of he had long hair and had a long beard.
Look at how awesome he looks. He has I don't even know what's going on here. It looks like he has a long sleeve sweater on. He looks like a nature boy. He looks awesome. Look at those legs. He's a powerful figure, right?
Yeah, I'll show you. I have you can see here, this is a picture I have here.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Yeah, so he was sorry for leaving the scene there. He was in a world at that time, tennis was very was obviously very, very conservative. It was called the white sport even. You were supposed to have white clothes on. And we don't need to get into that, but it was a very, very conservative thing and a very conservative sport. And he showed up with his long hair and his long beard and had a very different kind of Zen-like philosophical approach to tennis. And a lot of people in the tennis world really dug him because of his very unusual approach compared to all the other tennis players. But he played tennis, represented Denmark, obviously in the Davis Cup, played all the Grand Slams numerous times. We would spend every summer in London around Wimbledon. And actually, the very first concert, if you want to get into those connections, the very first concert that I was ever at was the Rolling Stones concert in Hyde Park in 1969.
Oh my God! Right before Altamont.
Yeah, just a couple of weeks after Brian Jones's untimely death, because it was right during Wimbledon in that summer. So we were always hanging out in London in the summer, and then my dad would go play the U.S. Open.
Lars, how old were you How old were you at that concert?
So I'm born in '63, so I was 5 or 6.
Do you remember it?
Not really. I have a couple pictures of it.
Yeah.
The first concert that I was ever at that I remember was when my dad took me to see Deep Purple in 1973 in Copenhagen when I was 9.
I think my first concert was Two of the Monkeys at the Golden Banana. It's not quite the Stones at Hyde Park. I want to just tell you a factoid about your father, because I know this is important. 1970 at Wimbledon, I'm not a tennis reporter or something, but Andres Gimeno, he gets beaten by him in the 4th round. That guy goes on to beat Arthur Ashe. Arthur Ashe! And Andres Gimeno in 1972, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, wins the French Open. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah, I know. There was... it was a great time in tennis. Lots of incredible personalities. If my dad was on this, or he would probably be talking about at that time, and in no way disrespecting obviously what's going on now. There are incredible players out there like Roger Federer, who I'm a huge fan of and very appreciative of. But at that time, and not to romanticize the past too much, but at that time, all the players that were winning the tournaments were because they were more talented than the other players. Nowadays in tennis, a lot of the people that rise to the top, and I'm generalizing here for effect, are the people that work out more, that spend 8 hours in the gym, that play with better racks. I mean, there's a whole different thing now with just going to the gym for 8 hours and pumping iron, and at that time it was much more of a gentleman's sport where they didn't practice that much. They would play a tennis match and then they would have a beer and have a cigarette. I mean, it was just a different time. And so the people that won the tournaments were the ones that were the most talented. Nowadays, the more work you put into it, and if you stand out there and hit forehands down the line for 9 hours, you have a better chance of winning. So it's kind of a different time. But it was fun. That was the environment I grew up in the 1960s, was with my dad on the tennis tour.
I think I'm a Federer guy. I do like Nadal. Djokovic I feel like he's the Yvonne Lendl of now, the joyless pursuit of excellence. It's just
I love Federer too.
Yeah.
Federer, I think, represents a lineage back to those guys in terms of grace and talent, and it never looks like he's trying too hard, and I mean that as a compliment, and because I think that's a great thing, and I love Federer. He's so graceful.
And this gets us back to you. Which every once in a while, Lars, I'm going to hold up this thing. My daughter made this sign because she's she can't go to school.
Metallica's Lars Ulrich. That's us. We're on.
Yeah, that's us. I'm going to hold that up because when I freeze this thing later, it'll show that. But I think about this sometimes, and this is like deep into first world problems with the worldwide pandemic. But I think about a guy like Federer is losing prime and maybe the last prime moment of his career. And then I think of you and many of the groups that I love, and you're off the road. You're not able to do your thing. And I'm just wondering how psychologically you're dealing with just putting the brakes on.
Well, thanks for asking that. I mean, there's many answers to that question. When I go down that path emotionally, I go down first to, the people that are really, first of all, the people that are on the front lines in terms of first responders and healthcare workers who are putting their lives on the line for the rest of us. Then I go down to the people that are, much more affected by this in terms of losing their jobs, in terms of losing loved ones, and all the rest of the carnage and challenges that come in the wake of that. Of course, it's hard for us not to play. We were supposed to play 20 shows by now in Latin America and in the States and festivals and all kinds of great stuff. And I miss all that. But compared to the people that are really, really impacted by this, that's kind of where I go and go, we're fine. We're taking lockdown very seriously, and we're not putting ourselves in any compromising situations. But
there you are, Lars. We have you with your mask.
That's right. Wear your mask, boys and girls.
But we have to say that. You know what I mean? It's like it shouldn't be that hard to figure out, but we do have to say that.
We do have to say that. We have to encourage people to do that. We've been trying for the last 5 or 6 months to continue. If there's one thing the members of Metallica are pretty good at, that's accepting the situation that we're in generally. I mean, it's been 38 years of mostly ups, but obviously some downs also. And so it's a new world. It's a new world order, a new reality. And, the name of the game is that you can sit and feel sorry for the situation that you're in, or we can try to find new ways to connect with our fans and see in what ways music can make a difference to the Metallica family out there and anybody else who wants to join. So the last 6 months has been an exercise in connecting with the audience. We've been doing our Metallica Mondays, where we've been streaming free concerts from the last 35 years. And we did a song, Black in 2020, which was a reinterpretation of one of our songs from the 80s. And so we're always trying to figure out how to connect with an audience, or how to connect with our audience, and try to just make a difference. So
you have a concert. You have a concert, this drive-in concert, which is
this
tomorrow,
is a big
right?
weekend. This is a big weekend. So this record.
Explain what that is to people. We can't actually. Yeah. I can't actually. I was going to go to the drive-in. I thought I might see you there, but you will not be on Cape Cod this weekend. No.
I have drive-in responsibilities in California. Okay. I think one of the other guys is covering Cape Cod.
Tell people how this works and what it is.
Yeah, so what I just wanted to say that, finishing up on the album that, the album that you were kind enough to talk about, and the album that's obviously coming out today, was supposed to come out in April or May. But because of the pandemic, then it got pushed back for months and months and months because of the that's right there, because of the pressing plants and all that being shut down. So this is a big weekend for Metallica, because not only is this record finally coming out 3-4 months later, but we are also, like you said, we are appearing at your local drive-in theater. So 6 months.
Oh, he froze.
Local drive-in theater near you. Who would have thought that those words would ever come out of my mouth? So Encore Live, an outfit based in Texas, did a similar thing with Garth Brooks, I think 6-8 weeks ago. Went well. And then they did Blake Shelton, I think 2-3 weeks ago. And then they called us and said, is Metallica interested? And we thought, you know what? Even though we never thought we would be appearing at a drive-in, these are new, and we're exploring all ways. And so we thought, as an experiment, that would be fun to try. So we said yes, and so we're the first rock band to do it on a large scale. It's 300 plus drive-in theaters across the U.S. and Canada this weekend. We recorded we created a little Metallica bubble about 10 days, 2 weeks back, where we all got together, rehearsed. The crew and the team were all quarantining.
That's you in the bubble, right? But
That's us in the bubble.
Yeah,
and everybody.
Kind of so like my head's in your bubble, but I would like to be in your bubble. I would test myself, you know.
There's always room for one more. So we were tested every couple days. We had all the crew guys and our technicians and the team. We had about 30 people in the bubble. It was great to connect with everybody. We rehearsed. We did Howard Stern. We recorded the concert that's going to be screened tomorrow at these drive-ins. We did some European promo, and just to be back, all four of us in the same space playing together and hanging out and reconnecting was great. So tomorrow, the drive-in experiment goes live. So I hope it works out, and I hope people are psyched about it. It's again like new times call for new ways to connect with fans musically. So we're excited to see how it goes.
Lars, I watch sports, and I find that baseball to me is very hard to watch the way it's going without the fans and empty stadiums. I kind of like what basketball has done. They've figured it out with these like weird electronic people, but it feels like something's going on. I don't know. What's the difference between playing that show for nobody and not seeing anyone in that crowd and playing it when you're in a gigantic arena?
Obviously, it's a different endeavor, but you accept the situation and you make the most of it. We were playing to the crew, the technicians. My wife was there. A few on per amount of friends were actually in the bubble with us, but you were playing to the tape recorders and to the cameras and playing to each other and really making the most of it. Like Robert Trujillo said a few times in the last week or so, we were playing literally to crickets because it was outside up in Sonoma County, up in the wine region here. We found a great space in a winery that had a big flat sort of lot-like the space, and it was great.
Right.
So that's obviously an unusual thing for us, but again, after 6 months of not playing, this was the first time we actually played since the S&M shows in September last year. There was such a euphoric feeling in the band, and I'm happy to play, and I'm happy to explore new ways. And obviously, I look forward to returning. I've trained myself in the last 6 months to not use the word normal because it'll never be. So we use the word new normal or to the new world order. But I look forward to obviously connecting with our fans on a bigger scale again. But in due time, obviously, what we know now compared to March or April, where we thought we may be sitting here for 6 or 8 weeks, and now we know that we're in for the long run. And as we sort of half-jokingly hear ourselves say that when there is a big-scale Metallica concert, again, then you can be pretty sure this pandemic is more or less over because, as everybody points out, all the experts and so on, that when 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 people get together again for a rock and roll concert of any kind, that's pretty much the last event that's going to come back. And so when that happens, then we'll all have big smiles on our faces because that will signal that this pandemic, for now at least, is over.
Yeah, I need this guy. You know this guy, Fauci? I need him to tell me it's okay, right?
Yeah. Yes.
For God's sakes. Hey, can I give you an idea? I don't know if you guys need this, but I've been thinking about it a little.
I'm always open to ideas. I can give
Hardwired
you
came out 8 years after Death Magnetic, which and now it's been 4 years since that. So I'm thinking, tell me if I'm wrong, what we would enjoy is a new Metallica album. And I'm wondering, what are the chances of that, and what has to go into that occurring?
Funny you should say that, because we are actually obviously looking at that through the magic of Zoom and other technological ways of connecting people in 2020. Connecting virtually and trading riffs, trading ideas. And we actually have a get-together every Thursday, the 4 members of Metallica. And yesterday, as long as you promise not to tell anybody, now that we've got S&M coming out today, the drive-in thing tomorrow, the next order on the agenda is to start really thinking seriously about how we can make the next record, how we can gain as much ground on the process of the next record. So we're on it, doing our best.
It's amazing how hard it is to make new records now, right? Because when you were kids, you just banged them out, right?
Let me confirm that for you. Yeah, when you're 19 years old and full of spunk, or in your 20s, or even in your 30s, I guess I would call it like an instinctive energy that pushes you forward. And so from a time point of view, you make decisions so much quicker, and you're not burdened by what happens to you later. And I mean this kind of as a juxtaposition in that when you're 22 years old and you have 4 weeks in the studio. Okay, now you got 4 weeks in the studio. We better have that record done on the 28th day. And you better have the songs written the day you go in, because that's your window or whatever. And nowadays, we have our own studio, and we can go down to the studio whenever we want. And we're much better songwriters, and we have much more gear at our disposal, and we have much more sort of this stuff, and we can come and go. Maybe we should take next Friday off because somebody's got a birthday or whatever. So as great as that is, obviously, for your well-being, your mental well-being, and obviously in your 50s you want to start balancing the two. When you're younger, you don't have the luxury of all these options, and sometimes options, as you probably know, can weigh you down and slow you down. And so when you're 20 years old and you can write a song in a couple days, and you just never second guess yourself, and obviously 30 years later, occasionally you may find yourself romanticizing the past, but when you are younger, you just never seem to get overly sort of weighed down or burdened by all the choices and what you've learned along the way. So obviously nowadays, we consider ourselves to be much better songwriters. We consider ourselves to be much more sort of on top and in charge of what we're doing. But back then, putting out a record every year or two. I mean, obviously, as you know, look at the Beatles, look at all these other incredible bands. I mean, people put out sometimes 2 records in 1 year, but also they had a much shorter the career span, because you literally just burn yourself out. So I think it's important to, at least for us to point out that, there's 8 years between Death Magnetic and Hardwired. It's not we go on the road for a year and then we take 7 years off. I mean, obviously we're constantly engaged in Metallica. We did the Lulu album with Lou Reed. We did the Through the Never movie project. Was each of those were a year. We're always touring. We were doing the big 4 shows all over the world. We so we were on the road for Death Magnetic for over 2.5 years. So Metallica actually hasn't. The last time we shut Metallica down was in 2005. We had, after the St. Anger tour ended at the end of 2004, we shut Metallica down for just about all of 2005 and really disconnected from it. But since then, it's been 15 years of constantly being engaged, and we love to play, and we love to go out, and whether it's playing festivals or playing benefits or playing, smaller places or mid-sized places or big places, we love all of it. And the luxury that we have is we can keep sort of doing different things, so we never repeat ourselves. So we'll play bigger places, smaller places. We'll do a record, we'll do some covers, we'll play acoustic. So you always have these different things that you can go do that keep you from burning out and keep you from and keep you engaged at different levels.
Hey, Lars, I'm not sure I've ever seen a documentary quite like Some Kind of Monster. And I've always wanted to ask you, do you wish you had never done that? Because you allow that guy with the camera, all his people, into your therapy sessions. Is that how you say it? Therapy? I don't know. But it's fascinating to me because people like you, famous rock stars, they often don't even tell the truth, and you're letting them into your sessions. Tell me about if you have changed your view into making that, and sort of how you look at that.
Oh no, we're fiercely proud of that movie. Fiercely proud of the I guess tenacity to stick with it as a project. It certainly wasn't intended that way when we started. We're starting a new record. It's about what are we doing here? It's early 2000, and so we're starting a new record. And somebody comes up with the idea of filming the new record, filming the making of the new record. At that time, remember all those late night, half-hour infomercials, the Ginsu knife, remember? And if you get the Ginsu, but you also get this one, and you also get, the sharpener, and you also get the knife holder or whatever. And if you call the next 20 minutes, you get 2 for 1. Remember all that? So somebody said, if these sessions are recorded, maybe we'll do an infomercial for the new record. It's like, okay, let's see how that plays out. But so there were these cameras, and we had contributed our music to this cause and these movies, the Paradise Lost, about the West Memphis 3, which we were fiercely proud to be, connected to these films. And we had established a relationship with the filmmakers, Bruce Sinofsky and Joe Berlinger. We invited them in, long story short, we invited them in to film the process, and then all hell broke loose, as you can tell, for the next 2 years. And everything kind of went upside down in 14 different directions and played out obviously differently than we had imagined. But we decided to keep the cameras around. Joe and Bruce encouraged us and asked us to trust them, that they felt that if we would let them film, that there may be an interesting project in there. The record company didn't want to finance it anymore, so we went along on the dare and basically bought the rights to the footage back from our record company, and then we gave it to Joe and Bruce, and they kept filming, and then they put that movie together. It was very, very difficult to watch, obviously, but I'm fiercely proud of the fact that we stuck with it, and the way that, you got to remember at that time, this was before social media, before people had the kind of access into to other people's lives that they do nowadays. So, having that kind of access to a rock and roll band going through the turmoil that we were going through and trying to figure out how to balance it with creative endeavor and so on was kind of, I don't know if I want to use the word unprecedented, but was unusual at the time. We stuck with it. The movie came out and was actually very, very well received, way much more than we anticipated, especially in the movie world, where people were so intrigued by this organic, dramatic arc that was in the film that obviously you couldn't have scripted. In the music world, there were a few people who thought that it was almost too much to have that kind of access to a band, and we shouldn't see that much behind the scenes. But I'm fiercely proud of the fact that we did it, and even though it's hard to watch. I mean, I don't watch it. Occasionally, when I flip through the channels, it shows up, and I look at it for 5 minutes. But it was obviously a pretty painful time in our lives, but we stuck with it. And as you know, there was a happy ending. And
well, you taught us, you showed us beautifully why a band breaks up, and then why a band stays together, which is not quite so common. Hey, Lars,
very proud of that part. Yes,
I'm gonna do something that sometimes works on Instagram. I'm gonna take a few questions. Can we do that? Yeah.
Of course.
Let's see what we get here. I mean, a lot of these are like, is Metallica coming to Spain soon? Can you come to Chicago? We get it, right?
Of course.
Okay, here we go. What's your favorite Metallica song? This comes from Naruto116.
Hey, Naruto. Well, surprise. I like most of them, but I won't chicken out that easy. I would say there's two songs that I love playing, because every night when we play them, we don't play them every night, but when we play them, I always play them differently. And I love some of the songs, obviously, you stick closer to the script. Other ones, you throw different things in there. Sad But True from the Black Album is one of my absolute favorites to play. And Welcome Home Sanitarium from the Puppets album. I love playing that song. Every time we play it, I throw different drum fills in there and all kinds of crazy stuff. So those are the first two that come to mind.
Lars, 40th anniversary coming up. This fine person, Clean Cut Metal Nut, is wondering what Metallica's plan is for their 40th anniversary. Anything you can tip us to?
Well, I could tell you that maybe you know that we had quite a celebration for our 30th anniversary in San Francisco here 9 years ago, where we had the legendary venue, the Fillmore, booked out for a whole week and played a bunch of concerts and invited all kinds of great friends, peers, musicians, collaborators to come and join us. That's going to be a hard one to beat, but we still have a year and a half. And I don't want to put a Debbie Downer on this, but obviously we don't know, what element, COVID plays in all this. But if everything is back up and running and we're back to our new normal, as I call it, we're going to put on something cool, and you'll hear it here first.
Megalika is asking if you'll marry her. I don't know if that's really possible through this venue. When will we get the Justice album in its entirety live? Skokie Fan 01.
That's a great question. We've played, I guess we played Puppets live. We played Lightning live in its entirety. We played Kill 'Em All live in its entirety. And we played the Black Album live in its entirety. So I guess of the first five, Justice is the one that stands out. A couple of 4-6 years ago, we did a whole summer or world tour where we did Metallica by request, which was really fun. The fans, if you bought a ticket, you could help pick the set list, and this was real. This was not just some kind of the shenanigans. Every person who bought a ticket voted, and the fans put together the song list. And when we played in Helsinki, Finland that summer, there's a song on Injustice for All called The Frayed End of Sanity, which we had never played live because it was kind of, I don't know, too complicated, too sideways, too crazy, too loopy, whatever. And it got voted in Helsinki, Finland. So we had to learn it. We actually stumbled our way through it, played it a couple more times that summer. And so I believe we played all 9 songs from the Injustice for All album live. So I will say right here that I will do my best to fulfill your wish and play Justice in its entirety at some point when we get back to playing again. Absolutely.
Lars, this is a picture of your finger. You've got a blister. That's your blister, right? Is that your blister?
That's my blister. It's this finger. It's doing better now, as you can see. Thank you for asking.
Hey, Hey, I've always been fascinated. You see Phil Collins walking with a cane now, and he's sitting in his chair, and it's very physically demanding. I remember Don Henley once told me, and Don Henley, I wouldn't think he'd have any trouble. He said he has all sorts of nerve things that occur from drumming. Do you find that you're still able to do the job, and how do you keep yourself capable of doing something so physically demanding?
Well, thank you. I certainly do what I can. The main thing I do is just take working out and all the individual prepping. I don't, most Metallica fans know I don't, we don't overly sort of rehearse. We like to be human, but what I do more than anything is I work out. I try to stay in shape, and I take cardio and core workouts. I've been doing a lot of that in lockdown for the last 5 months. I have a drum kit downstairs where I do play and play along to our records. No matter how much, I can tell you, no matter how much, and I discovered this 2 weeks ago when we got into the Metallica bubble, no matter how much you prep and play and warm up, as soon as I play with the fellas, that's what happens to the fingers because it's just a different intensity. But I take, I'm 50, I'm 55, 56. I think I'm 56 now, actually. I'm somewhere in that zone. But obviously, I eat healthier. I'm a vegetarian. And I take working out very seriously and just try to stay in shape and try to stay sort of physically capable. If you look at, unfortunately, a lot of the, if you see, Black Sabbath played a few years ago, but they, the drummer is in his 20s or 30s, other bands, go out. And, guys that are in their 60s and 70s, but the drummer's in the 20s or 30s. I mean, there's obviously the Rolling Stones. Charlie Watts is, I think, closer to 80 than he is to 70, which is very inspiring. So as long as we can keep the elbows and the necks and the knees and the shoulders in shape and connected to our bodies, we'll keep going till we fall over. But I am obviously aware of the physicality of it, and I do my best to try to stay healthy.
Here's a good one. I enjoyed this. It's a little curveball. Your least favorite song from Metallica. That's from Cyanide Dre. I don't think that's that person's real name, but I'm not sure. Do you have a least favorite song? Be careful.
Yeah, no. I actually, somebody asked me that in an interview a week or two ago. So the first one that comes to mind, there's a song on the St. Justice album again that we talked about called Eye of the Beholder. Again, I'll preface this by saying I don't know if it's the least favorite, but I heard Eye of the Beholder a few years ago and was kind of going, huh? What? What were you thinking? It's interesting because it's got two different drum beats in it. It's got a straight 4/4. And then the chorus is like in a shuffle beat, and how you force those two different drum beats up against each other when you were 25 years old. That seemed maybe easier through a lot of tenacity and a lot of steadfastness or whatever. Nowadays it sounds like kind of a train wreck to me. So I don't know if it's the least favorite, but it sounded very forced and very contrived. And I don't know. I guess if we play Justice in its entirety, we'll throw in obviously Eye of the Beholder. But that one, last time I heard it, left me kind of scratching my head.
So, Lars, I just want to endorse, as an old man, I just think that the vinyl version of this new set, I don't know what color this is, but it's like...
It looks like
it's kind of switchy San Francisco Symphony-ish color, right?
It looks like a tuba or something, the color of a wind instrument. Or maybe it's the color like rust in one of Hetfield's cars.
But I love this record. It's like a physical object, like actually a lot of classical records that I have, like Mahler's Ninth Symphony by, the Chicago symphony orchestra. It's in this, like, the binding. Like, I feel like I'm dealing with something solid here. Let me ask you, speaking of something that is not solid, but I remember you were such a strong voice in the whole Napster mess. And from what I understand, you are an endorser or believer in Spotify. We have a few minutes. Explain to me your views on
and
how that all works, because I hear a lot of artists complain about such a thing.
Yeah, no. So let's just clarify. Listen, Spotify. I love Spotify. I also love Apple Music. I'm a big proponent of streaming, and so and I've said this 1,000 times. We were never against the digitalization of music. We were never against sharing music. What Napster did at that time, they took our right. We are not against giving our music away for free if we wanted to, but that should be our choice. And Napster took that choice away from us, and they didn't. There was no, are you okay if we make your music public or available? There was never a question or a friendly letter in the inbox or whatever. So it kind of became more of a street fight. It's like, oh, hang on a second. It's our music. If we want to give it away for free, that should be our choice, not yours. And so 20 years later, that has kind of played out, obviously, the way that's played out. But streaming is a great way for people to get their music out there. And obviously, Geoff, if you and I wanted to start a band, today we could record it.
Yeah. What the heck? I'd love to start a band. I can't really.
When you and I start our band later today and write our song tomorrow, obviously we can have it up and available on streaming services and all the rest of the outlets, on Monday morning. So obviously, I love that outlet and the fact that those opportunities are available, but in 2020 years ago, that choice was taken away from us by Napster, and we met them in the back alley and had a street fight that summer.
Well, I'll tell you, and we have to go because I want to save this thing, but I listen to streamed music and I listen to vinyl, and if we have our band, I want to put out a swirly vinyl, if that's okay.
We'll make that happen.
I'm so grateful for you coming here, and I'm glad I'm going to listen to this as I drive today. On my CD, and I'm going to keep my vinyl behind me for when I'm in my office, and I hope we'll do it again, and I really do look forward to seeing you in person someday again, Right
back at you, man. Thank you for having me. This is great. I can see it's 11:58, so we're going to cut off here in another minute or two, but this is so much fun. If you promise not to tell anybody and let this go to your head, this was my first Instagram Live, so there you go.
Well, you seem professional. You wore an Instagram Live hat, as I like to call it.
That's right.
And
right
you're accepting of my wig. All right, we'll do it again, okay?
Take care, man. There. Much love. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Bye-bye.